Kayshon Boutte has been, or Booty, I think it is Booty. I never know if it's Booty or Boutte, but Kayshon Boutte has been very good to this point.
Okay, Jacob. Well, we're going to take a little look at the waiver wire this week, like we usually do, but this week we'll do with a QB lean because, listen, one of the biggest stories in week 2 was all of the injuries happening to all these passers around the league. Brock Purdy, Joe Burrow, Jaden Daniels, Justin Fields is hurt. Uh, let's take a look at these QBs in the segment we want to call QB Lifeline. And um, the first quarterback I want to talk about here might be available is Drake May. So what's the case for Drake May?
Yeah, so May is a guy who's probably owned in more than the typical 50% of league threshold that you see on the waiver wire. But if he's available in your league, definitely go after him because he's the type of guy that has rushing upside at quarterback and isn't afraid to use his legs. He ran for a touchdown against the Dolphins, and the Patriots are going to be able to use him a lot to throw the ball because they haven't been efficient running the ball so far this year. Ramondre Stevenson has been good as a receiver, so has Travion Henderson, but between the tackles, they haven't done a lot. That means a lot's going to fall on Drake May. He's going to get a lot of passing attempts each game. And I think the Patriots have an easier schedule than average this year, so I think that's going to help him. If he's available, definitely grab him, make him your top replacement, and just do everything you can to kind of replace, especially if you have Joe Burrow, with a higher end guy like Drake May.
Now, question for you, Jacob. No concern with his offensive skill position talent there out wide or in tight end?
I'm not overly concerned. Stephon Diggs is still there. He's been looking okay. Kayshon Boutte has been, or Booty, I think it is Booty. I never know if it's Booty or Boutte, but Kayshon Boutte has been very good to this point. He has 17 yards per reception, and it's looking like he might kind of emerge as a compliment there. So I think with those two guys and with the pass catching running backs they have, he should be okay to produce.
Well, let's hope Booty. Well, let's hope Drake May isn't Booty, right? Moving on to another quarterback who had been Booty in his career, but so far through 2 weeks in the NFL season, he's looked pretty damn good, and that's Daniel Jones out there with the Indianapolis Colts. What do you think of Daniel Jones? Is this a waiver wire guy that people should consider?
Yeah, he's probably, as weird as it sounds, he's the guy who's available in most leagues that probably makes the best sense as the fill-in quarterback for you in fantasy as long as your injured guy is out. He just looks like a perfect fit in Shane Steichen's offense. You know, Jones has always had good short field accuracy, and he's thrown better over the middle. And you're kind of seeing that come to light in the Colts offense. He's gotten the ball to Michael Pittman. Tyler Warren is a great weapon for him to have. So, you know, with those two guys, with Jones's accuracy, and with Shane Steichen's willingness to trust him as a runner near the goal line, he has 3 rushing touchdowns already. He's going to have a pretty high floor most weeks. And it seems like the Colts are just confident in letting him do what he's going to do. He's second in the NFL in passing yards right now, Joe. Daniel Jones is one behind Russell Wilson in the passing yards leaders. So it's insane that this is happening in 2025, but I like Jones. He's just a good fit with that Colts offense, and he has enough weapons that will accentuate his strengths there.
I'm not ready to apologize to Daniel Jones yet, but he could put together another couple performances like this, and maybe we'll have a discussion about it. I'm just not there mentally yet to admit it. Jacob, another quarterback that's usually been rostered, but I think some people were scared by a lot of things that happened in preseason with his back, and that's Los Angeles Rams quarterback Matthew Stafford. Why is he a safe pick for a waiver wire pickup?
Yeah, I think any confidence you have in Stafford has to be about the top 2 receivers he has. Puka Nacua and Devontae Adams look like they could be one of the best receiver duos in the NFL. I mean, think about around the league. Jamar Chase and T. Higgins are probably number 1, but Nacua and Adams might be 2. Adams looks rejuvenated so far. He has good chemistry so far with Stafford as well. So with those two guys playing well and Stafford looking healthy through 2 weeks, I think that's been key too. You mentioned the injury. I understand people being scared. I was scared by it. I didn't pick the Rams to win the NFC West because of that injury. But as long as he stays healthy, he's going to be that kind of consistent performer with high-end targets who can probably get 250 passing yards and a couple touchdowns most weeks. So that kind of consistency at quarterback is key to have. So I like the idea of if Stafford's available and you're desperate at quarterback, go out and get him.
All right, Jacob, we move on to the next quarterback on the list here, and that's Michael Penix Jr., an interesting selection on the waiver wire, but I think he's a guy that makes a lot of sense. What's the case for Michael Penix here?
Yeah, the case for Penix is kind of similar to the one I outlined earlier for Matthew Stafford. He's in an offense that has a lot of great pass catching weapons. I mean, Drake London, Darnell Mooney, Kyle Pitts, all playing well at receiver. And then you have Bijan Robinson, who's just one of the best, if not the best, receiving running back in the league. So Penix is going to be able to distribute the ball to these guys and just rack up a lot of yards. I know some people will be concerned by the fact that the Falcons have run the ball 50% of the time through 2 weeks, tied for the fourth highest mark in the NFL. And they probably would prefer to continue to run that type of balanced offense. But Penix's combination of arm strength and accuracy and the weapons he has should allow him to get a lot of those, quality passing performances, and the touchdown should come with him as well. He just seems like a playmaker. He'll probably be fun to roster too. And hey, playing in that NFC South, he's going to get some easier matchups that will allow him to, put more of those streaming weeks where he's a top 12 quarterback than maybe some of the other guys that are available out there.
Any concern for sophomore slump for Penix? I know he didn't play a ton last year, but the promise was there. Entering his first full year as a starter, what are the expectations for him as a passer?
Yeah, I'm not too worried about a sophomore slump. The only worry I have is if he does go through a slump, they have Kirk Cousins behind him, so they could pull the plug on him at any time, which is a little scary. But I think they're pretty committed to Penix, and I just think that he's going to continue to take steps forward. He's getting healthier. He had 4 season-ending injuries at Indiana in college, and he just keeps getting further and further removed from those, and looking healthier and looking mobile and just looking like he can read the field and diagnose things well. So I'm confident that he's going to continue to develop well. I've always liked him as a prospect, even in the year that he was drafted. So I'm excited to see what Atlanta can do for them. But I've liked what they've done with him so far, getting him the action last year, moving him to this year as the starter, and then having all the weapons around him that they have amassed over the years.
I don't know what's scarier, Jacob, the idea of Penix getting benched or the idea of me having to watch Kirk Cousins play football again. It's a terrifying thought either way. So, all right, Jacob, the last quarterback on your list here, waiver wire pickup, QB Lifeline segment here is Jake Browning, a guy that's performed pretty well in Joe Burrow's absence, and probably in line to get the start this week. What do you think about Jake Browning and replacing Joe Burrow?
Yeah, I think any case for Browning, you have to know you're going to get some interceptions here. He has a career interception percentage of 3.6, very high for an NFL quarterback, but it's because he has this gunslinger mentality. He takes downfield chances across 8 career games during which he's played a majority of the snaps, all of which have been with the Bengals. He's averaged 263.6 passing yards and 1.6 passing touchdowns. So he has a pretty high floor. He's in an offense with Jamar Chase, Chase Brown, and T. Higgins. So again, he's a guy that has a lot of weapons around him, and he's not afraid to take downfield chances. We talked about that with Carson Wentz earlier. I think Browning is going to be the type of guy that can get you some of those explosive, big scoring weeks, especially since the Bengals don't have a very good defense and will need to outscore their opponents significantly, or just keep pace with their offenses. So I think that this is going to be a good spot for Browning. Again, you're going to have to live with the interceptions, but it's almost like the same kind of impact that you can have with a Jameis Winston in fantasy, where he's going to get you some of those 500-yard, four touchdown games, but he might also have 3 interceptions while doing it.
Jacob, if you had to take a guess who's going to suffer most about the loss of Joe Burrow and the addition of Jake Browning into that lineup, whether it's receivers or Chase Brown, who suffers the most in that Bengals offense?
Yeah, it's tough to say. Like, I don't want to say that that Jamar Chase is going to suffer badly. It's not like he's going to regress to being a bad receiver by any means, but given the chemistry that he had with Joe Burrow, it's just going to another quarterback carries with it a little more risk than I think you like. That doesn't mean that you're going to move off of him. That means that he still could be the number 1 overall fantasy receiver, and he played great against the Jaguars with Browning playing a majority of that game. So I don't think there's any like long-term worry about him, but his ceiling might be a little less high. And I think you mentioned Chase Brown. He's probably the one I'd be most worried about. Just we don't know how often Jake Browning is going to be willing to check down or how quickly he'll read the field and get to Chase Brown being open. So he might have a few less receptions, which could, impact his fantasy bottom line. So I think Brown's probably the most affected, but Chase is going to be the one that's most fascinating to watch how he does without Burrow.